the last bus. She was on a queue being pushed by eager passengers fighting to board the bus before the better seats were taken. She cursed herself for being taken up by the window shopping when she wasn't even sure she would be able to pay for what she had been coveting. The excitement of the first paycheck, maybe. The realization that you can work with your hands and be paid for it. Though it wasn't a fancy job, but it was the best she could learn so far. After all, she only had the junior certificate. Being a mother had taught her the mothering skills which she later found out was all a nanny needs. The bus Sindile boarded had left town just before sunset. It had already gone through the Ndafera industrial area, left the tarmac road at Mackenzie, and was now negotiating the bends and humps of the Candida Hills, the last miles before her station. She had left her window open, though she could sense this irritated the other passenger she shared the seat with. The feeling of the breeze on her face and the way her curled hair was being blown by the wind gave her the illusion of the freedom she had missed in the 3 years she had been cohabitating with her partner. The freedom to get out with friends, freedom to be able to buy herself the clothes of her choice, to be able to have a job, or just freedom to be with Sindile. The houses she saw along the road made her start thinking of owning her own home. Maybe finding a better husband and together raise a family, building a 4-bedroom house and watching their children grow. This made her chuckle, for deep in her heart, she knew those were just wishes that could never come true. She knew it was next to impossible for a girl with a bush child, for that's what they call children conceived out of wedlock, to find a proper husband. Nobody would want to pay lobola for her. In other cultures, maybe, where having a child is proof of fertility, her bride price may actually skyrocket. But here in her home, the price plummets with every child you bear. Men pay more for virgins. If you already have children, all a man wants to do with you is have sex. Because your child is proof enough that you can do it. And when they get what they want, they vanish. Before you know it, you have a bunch of kids bearing different surnames. She knew a lot of women from her village who have as many as 5 children from different fathers. They are the kind of women the married women talk about. And when they turn up in events, the other women murmur about the presence of husband snatchers in the place. From the stares she had been getting from women in the village, she knew she was categorized in the husband snatcher category. What she didn't like was that the women also branded her as a failure. She had failed to keep a husband. You think those town fingers can grab a cooking stick? Hey, her mother spoiled her like a princess from a royal house. I heard her mother refused to send her to the initiation ceremony when she came of age. How did she expect her to keep a husband then? Those 2 flows sat on her back, making her a victim of gossip, target practice everywhere she went in her village. They could not just learn to leave her alone. But what is the alternative? Sindile wonders. To stay in a marriage with a partner who only notices you when he has an erection? A man who doesn't allow you to do anything except obey his commands? To live in that relationship till death do you part is rightly what it is, a death sentence. The self-sacrifice for a biased union. Deep down her heart, she knew she did the right thing to leave him. She thought of his anger whenever he felt his will was not being done. The angry God who punishes children to the 4th generation for the sins of their mother. How he would throw their little son off the bed, She remembered a time when he almost scolded the child with hot porridge because she had forgotten to check his trouser pockets and had washed the money he needed to satisfy his drinking habit. "You can't do this, you can't do that, don't go there." He was always shouting orders. His father had always told him that he needed to find a job now that he had a wife. But he did not care. He stole his father's chickens and used the money on Mukano, the Marula beer. She blamed herself for ignoring the obvious signs. She knew he had anger issues when she started dating him. But who knows whether a teenage romance would last into marriage? Who can tell if the first sex would lead to a pregnancy? Parents have a way of forcing marriages. Her father, Eva the traditionalist, had made sure that she packed the moment her mom told him about the pregnancy. 15-year-old Sindile had sinned before man and God. She had to leave or he would kill the little bastard in her belly himself. She left to serve her life sentence at her in-laws' home. Her dream of working in the tourism industry at the George Hotel, to be specific, all shattered because of one orgasmic experience. Now and then, the bumps in the road would bring her back to the present moment, and she would turn her head around to assure herself that she was no longer under his yoke. A yoke she had blindly walked into, but she couldn't blame herself. He trapped her with his adorations, the small gifts he bought, him waiting for her on her way from school, knocking on the window of her bedroom when she came for the holidays, sneaking her out of the house and taking long walks in the moonlight, listening to her talk about her dreams, and promising to support her in everything. At first, they had agreed that they would not have sex until they both finished school and got married. But when you are cloistered together in a glass shack on a rainy night, anything can happen. The 40-mile journey came to an end at Candida, her drop-off point. She disembarked and started walking towards her home. The station was deserted. The moon was up. Still, it was not safe for her to walk home alone at this hour. She must do something about finding a house in town. She had been arriving late so often. Criminal minds might soon notice her pattern and attack her. She brushed that thought aside. She increased her pace and kept walking towards her home. She thought she heard the dry grass on the roadside cracking under someone's feet. She turned around and there was no one around. She kept walking, turning now and then to see if she was not being followed. She had made it as far as the Candida Bridge. She was almost a half mile away from home. Then she thought she saw a human shadow under a tree just after the bridge. She kept walking. Tree shadows have a way of playing with one's mind in the night. She passed the tree and then something happened. Sindila could not remember whether she heard the footsteps or saw the shadow first. All she remembered was her turning around and seeing a man in a trench coat, bush knife in hand, ready to hack her. "You thought you had won, you whore." It was Msendizi. She raised her arms to block the imminent bush knife attack from this young man who once promised her heaven and earth. But human flesh is not a shield for knives. The last things she heard were the whack sounds of the knife hitting her body. It took less time than he had imagined. The frenzy of the hacking lasted less than a minute. Omsedisi remembered were the flashes of the glimmering bush knife in the moonlight as he hacked the hell out of the whore who had the guts to tell him that their relationship was over because he was a control freak. Who does that? Men are supposed to control. This whore deserves to die. He thought as he walked away from the crime scene. Trench coat turned scarlet. Cindilla woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed, bandages all over her body, oxygen containers all around her. She could not feel anything. It was the medicine that made her feel numb. They told her he was arrested. 3 weeks later, she was discharged from the hospital with 3 fingers in her right hand, missing and stitches everywhere. They told her they had to chop off the fingers to save the hands. 3 months later, he was released from prison. And his first action was to go to her home and take his son away from her. Nobody said a word. He is the father after all. And besides, these things happen. This incident has just cemented their relationship. They will be together again as a couple before the year ends, I bet you. But every night she stays indoors because outside there are shadows. Under the shade of the roof, behind the wall, under the trees, everywhere. There is the hacker's shadow, machete raised for attack, and she misses her son's small feet. She remembers the moccasins are jets and wonders what kind of shoes is covering Chico's small feet. She closes her eyes, but she can't sleep. The hacker's shadow is in her dreams as well.